Hey guys, welcome back. I'm excited. I have a whole bunch of cards for you today. There are 5 cards in this stack, all created with this fun, festive Merry Border stamp set. Now, as you can see, this is very Christmassy, and I even have a bonus non-Christmas card in here to share. The stamp set also comes with these 2 thin cut words, Merry and Peace, which are super useful, and we're going to be incorporating those. So you can see these come on the border strips, and then you even get a few individual little sprigs in this as well. I'm definitely a fan of stretching the crafty stash, so let's see how many different ways we can use this stamp set. So for our very first card, I'm going to bring in our Versamat and flip it over. It has this nice foam backing, and then I have a piece of white daisy cardstock cut down to 5 1/4 by 4. We're going to use this first piece with the ferns. As you see there, I've already got it mounted on a block. And now this first card, we're going to use it as it is demonstrated, kind of its intended purpose. So I'm using the New England Ivy, and I'm stamping this first layer, and then I'm going to flip the block over and re-ink it up, and we're going to stamp it down again, and we're creating kind of an upper and a lower border, and then we'll put our sentiment in the center. So now we're bringing in the sage color, and I'm using these leaves, and those all come together on one stamp as well. So now I can't quite get my head over the top of this because I would be in your way. So it's a little bit difficult for me leaning back the way I am, but I'm still getting this lined up. So now we're going to use the New England Ivy again, and we're going to use these little pine boughs. This is so fun to stamp with. I love how we can just build up these layers and we're creating this really pretty garland of greenery. So much fun. So I'm just basically mirroring the top and bottom. And now again, I'm going to show you, I didn't quite get down on the line there, so not a big deal. I'm just taking a tri-blend marker and I'm going to extend that ink color out and no one will ever know. So now we're going to bring in the cranberry, and there's berries on this, and there's some leaves too intermixed with the berries. So we'll stamp this down in the, not cranberry, boy, that was the way back when. This is the candy apple red. And so we'll stamp those, and yeah, super pretty. This looks even better in person than it did in the catalog. It's so much fun. So now we have our words and Peace and Merry, and I'm going to die cut these out of the candy apple cardstock. I think I went the darker side. So I did a couple of those, and then I am going to show you a fun way to make these shiny and have some dimension. The liquid glass is super fun and easy to apply over the top of these. I actually saw Lisa Stens create a card with this set, and she did this, and I love the way it looked. So we're just going to, I put down a piece of all-purpose mat just to protect my workspace, and then I am not using the fine tip applicator. So we'll set those aside to dry, but I have one already done, and if I hold it in the light there, you can see all that super shiny finish on there. It's kind of bubbled up too, which is hard to appreciate on camera, but there's one with and one without the liquid glass. So I'm going to bring in a piece of the New England Ivy cardstock and then attach this to my card base that I have here, which is pre-scored, and this is from the Cards and Envelope Value Pack. So we'll get that tucked down, and then I am going to just put a little liquid glue and adhere this over the New England Ivy so we have a nice green border around the edge there. Now we can bring in our sentiment, and I'm just going to use the same glue and glue this down. Just putting a few dots here and there. You don't need to go crazy. We don't want it to squish out anywhere. So we'll just, the liquid glue works really well. And then we can flip this over and put it right in the center, and easy peasy. Card number 1 is done. This is a great look. I love how this stamp set was designed, and it was really fun to stamp all those layers. So here's a little bit closer look, and then we can move on to card number 2. So for card number 2, we're going to need a piece of black cardstock, and I'm bringing in Distress Oxide in peeled paint and then White Daisy pigment ink. Now, because I am stamping on black cardstock, I want to use the pigment ink so it sits on top of the paper. The little individual portions of the stamp here, I am going to use those. We'll use the leaf and then the individual little pine bough. So we'll stamp this up, and the Distress Oxide it's a blend of pigment and alcohol ink, but it will still sit on top of the paper like we want it to. So basically I'm doing some random stamping, and you want to make sure you stamp off the edge. You also want to rotate your stamp and as you move it around the paper so it appears to be this very natural pattern. And now I'm going to bring in the white daisy and these leaves here, and we'll stamp these in the same way, just rotating the stamp, moving it about, filling in those areas, and making sure to stamp off the edge. So again, it looks very natural, like a sheet of pattern paper that you cut down to size for your card. You just want to make sure your color is balanced and that you have white kind of evenly distributed, or all the colors evenly distributed across the page there. So one more right here, and I'm thinking that looks pretty good. And so now I'm going to add some liquid pearls in the white opal. So I want these to be in a cluster of 3 in each little area. So I'm moving around the card and I'm filling in those empty spaces. And this just really helps this look more like a pattern paper, and it gives it some cool texture also. These liquid pearls do take just a little bit to dry, so you want to keep that in mind. I always do up a bunch of projects and then maybe take my dogs for a walk or go have a cup of tea or something. And not that long, but maybe an hour before they're completely bomb-proof. I have one already done and dry, and as you can see, those sprigs have brightened as they've dried, which is very cool. So I'm going to take this, you can see I was kind of experimenting with colors on the back there, but I'm going to take this and adhere it down to my white card panel here. Just like so, the little liquid glue, and look how pretty that is. It really doesn't need much. I love the black in the background. It's such a striking look, and those little pearl drops are so pretty. So I'm just going to bring this in, and then I cut the word peace out from silver foil paper, and I just thought it was an elegant look, and we're going to layer that up. I decided, at first I thought I was going to glue this down, and then I kind of want to change gears. So definitely want to pop that up. So I'm just going to wipe this glue off with my finger, and then, that'll dry and it won't be a problem. I'm just going to use a little bit of foam tape and put that there instead. And I know you won't be able to really tell on camera, but in person, just having this little center panel popped up really dresses the card up even more. So then we'll just put this little word. I love having die cut words. I can never have too many. They're just so easy and they look so great on cards or for titles on your scrapbook page. And it's just so quick and fun. So moving on to card number 3, I'm going to bring in a piece of white daisy, and now I have the circle. This is from the circle shaker elements so that you can make the shaker cards, and I'm not cutting a hole. I'm just going to trace a circle because we're going to build a wreath with this stamp set. So I missed where my finger was. That's okay. It's just a guideline, and I'm bringing in this little individual pine bough, and we're going to stamp the New England ivy going all the way around our circle. If you saw my 12 days of Christmas cards last year, we did this technique, and it is a great technique. It's a good way to, get a different look out of your stamps. So all I'm doing is just following this circle and going around the edge, closing in the wreath here, and that super easy, looks great. And so now we're going to bring in the candy apple red and these little berries. Now I did cut this little berry sprig and separate it from the others, and that's okay to do. You can do a little stamp surgery, cut it out because you can put it back together on your block and stamp it the way it came. So that is definitely okay to do. And at first I did not like to do that. I really had to tell myself it's okay, and now I do it all the time. So I'm basically putting some little berry clusters, and I'm going to do 3 individual clusters. We're kind of making a triangle around this wreath, and I want to put some berries going to the inside of the wreath as well. So I'm stamping each little berry sprig about 3 times and just rotating it again so it looks very natural. And this one here, I think I'm going to do 4. I don't have a demo card for this. We're literally just winging it as we go. So I have a little bit, this is a zip strip or the branding strip from the current Mix In paper collection. And I wish I had a whole bunch of this because it is super cool. I love the black and white stripe. So I'm placing that along the bottom of the card to anchor it. And now we're going to adhere this to a New England Ivy cardstock base. So I love having the little pop of color around the edge there, and it just gives a nice heavy feel to these cards when you have a few layers and it looks nice. So here's our word Mary that we did earlier with the liquid glass, and then I tied with some red twine from my stash. I don't know what a scratch is, but I tied that from my stash and adhered it with a glue dot. And then we will go ahead and get this little Mary word set here. And there is a little stamp that says Christmas, and I do end up adding this, but I somehow missed it on camera. So there are these pretty little flower sequins that have like a translucent finish to them. And so I'm adding those to my berry clusters, and they just have a wintry feel, in this setting just because of that translucency, and they just look really cool. So I'm putting a couple in each berry cluster, and then I'll give you a closer look at how pretty those are. I just love the detail that adds to this wreath. So moving on to card number 4, I have a stitched rectangle from the medium-sized rectangle, and we're going to bring in that New England Ivy and our little individual pine bough, and I'm stamping down from the the upper left-hand corner. And so we're angling those. I'm making sure to make it look like it's all one branch, so I'm connecting it there. And I think that looks pretty good. So now we're going to bring in some of those berries with the candy apple red. And I'm just going to overlay the berries and bring some down like so. I like to do things in odd numbers. So there are 3 little stamped berries, and I like the way that looks. It feels nice and balanced. So that was super easy. What I'm going to do, I have the wood grain paper pack that I've already matted onto the New England Ivy. And then we're going to center this on the wood grain paper there. And again, bring in some of that zip strip. And I want to cut it long enough just so it overhangs the little white daisy stitched rectangle on either side. And then this is going to give us just a little anchor spot for our sentiment so it doesn't look like it's floating out in the middle of nowhere. And now I have the word peace cut from the gold foil, and that really gives a nice finish when you cut these die cuts from the foil paper, or glitter paper too would look really cool. So we'll go ahead and flip this over, and again we're just going to set it above our little zip strip there. Get that tacked down, and then put this whole piece onto the white card base. Okay, this card came together quick and easy. Just a little stamping with the pine boughs and berries, and that looks great. Okay, I said I would have a non-Christmas card for you, so we're going to work with peacock and sage. And I love this peacock color. It's one of my favorites. I have a strip of white daisy cardstock. This is 1.5 inches wide by about 5.25 long. So I have the little leaves from the top, little individual sprigs, and I'm going to start with the peacock. And again, we're just doing some random stamping. I do apologize that my paper's kind of off the edge of the the screenshot there. I'm not sure why that happened. But again, stamping off the edge, rotating your stamp, and just turning it around. And it's random, but it's really not random. So then we're going to do the same thing with these other leaves in the sage color, filling in those little gaps. And we're making our own pattern paper with this stamp, and we're going to use it in a very non-Christmas way. So I'm just filling in any areas that look like they need a pop of color, and then I'll show you how I use this on a finished card. I've created our own pattern paper here and used it for a birthday card. You can see I put it on the left-hand side for a fun strip of patterned paper. And then I've embossed. This is the Spring Blossoms embossing folder from the annual catalog, and I used sage cardstock. And then I use this bracket to cut out White Daisy. And then I like how we just have a little stamping going on the opposite corner there. So as you can see, a very non-Christmas stamp from a Christmas set. And here we have our background paper we created with the pigment inks, and then our Merry Christmas wreath, our peace card, how it was kind of intended to be used, and then our pine boughs and berries coming from the corner. I had so much fun stamping with you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, then just share it out into the world with all of your crafty friends. Here's a few more videos I think you will enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.